My mother's nursing home starved her for weeks, so I gathered evidence that shut down every location they owned. When I walked into her room that Sunday afternoon, my mother grabbed my wrist with fingers that felt like bird bones. She pulled me close and whispered 3 words that made my blood freeze. They don't feed me. I laughed at first because this was Sunrise Gardens, the most expensive memory care facility in the county. I was paying $8,400 a month for around-the-clock care, but then I looked at her face, really looked, and I saw the hollows under her cheekbones. Her wedding ring, the one she'd worn for 43 years, was dangling loose on her finger. I asked when she'd last eaten a full meal. She started crying and said she couldn't remember. I found the head nurse at the main station scrolling through her phone. I asked about my mother's meals and she barely looked up. Your mother has dementia, Mr. Holloway. She forgets she's eaten. It's very common. She smiled like I was a child asking why the sky was blue. I told her my mother had lost weight, significant weight, and I wanted to see her food logs. The nurse's smile tightened. Those are internal documents, but I assure you, she's eating 3 meals a day plus snacks. I asked to speak with the facility director. She told me he wasn't available and suggested I schedule an appointment for next week. When I pushed harder, she stood up and said visiting hours ended in 30 minutes. I left feeling like I'd imagined the whole thing, but I couldn't shake what I'd seen. That night, I dug through my emails and found the intake documents from 6 months ago. My mother had weighed 142 pounds when she arrived. I called her doctor the next morning and asked for her current weight. After some hesitation, he told me she was down to 118, 24 pounds in 6 months. I asked if anyone at the facility had flagged this. He went quiet, then said he'd only received 2 weight reports since her admission, both listing her at 138. Someone was falsifying records. I drove back to Sunrise Gardens and demanded a meeting with the director. A security guard met me in the lobby and told me I was being disruptive to the care environment. They handed me a formal letter stating my visitation was under review pending a behavioral assessment. They were trying to cut me off from my own mother. I hired a private investigator that same day. His name was Leonard Webb, retired state police, and he specialized in elder abuse cases. Within a week, he had a contact inside the facility, a kitchen worker named Darnell who'd been trying to report problems for months. Darnell gave us everything. Photographs of meal trays going to rooms untouched and coming back the same way, schedules showing only 2 aides covering 63 residents on night shifts, and a spreadsheet he'd secretly compiled showing which residents had family who visited regularly and which ones didn't. The ones without visitors were getting half portions or nothing at all. They were triaging food based on who might notice. My mother had been flagged because I only visited twice a month. Leonard pulled state inspection reports and found 18 complaints filed against Sunrise Gardens in the past 2 years. Every single one had been closed without action. I started visiting every day, sometimes twice. I brought my own food and sat with my mother while she ate. The staff watched me like I was a threat. One afternoon, the director finally appeared. His name was Gerald Whitman, and he wore a suit that cost more than most residents' monthly social security checks. He sat across from me in the visitor lounge and spoke in that slow, condescending voice people use when they think they're smarter than you. Mr. Holloway, your mother is receiving excellent care. What you're perceiving as neglect is simply the natural progression of her condition. I pulled out my phone and showed him the weight discrepancy. He didn't blink. Medical records can be complicated. I'm sure there's an explanation. I told him I had documentation that his staff was falsifying food logs. His face changed. He leaned forward and lowered his voice. You need to be very careful about making accusations you can't prove. This facility has resources you don't want to test. That's when I showed him the camera. Leonard had helped me install a small device in my mother's room, hidden in a picture frame. Completely legal since I had power of attorney, and it was her private space. I had footage of aides walking in, checking their phones, and walking out without delivering meals. I had audio of one staffer telling another that the dementia ones don't remember anyway, so what's the point? Whitman's face drained of color. I told him I'd already sent copies to the state licensing board, the local news station, and an attorney who specialized in class action lawsuits against care facilities. His hands were shaking when he stood up. He said I was making a mistake. I told him his company owned 14 facilities across 3 states, and I'd just given investigators a reason to look at every single one. The story broke 8 days later. Channel 4 ran it as their lead, complete with my footage and interviews with 6 other families who'd come forward. State inspectors descended on all 14 locations simultaneously. They found residents with bed sores down to the bone, medication logs that hadn't been updated in weeks, and refrigerators full of expired food. 3 residents at another facility had died in the past year from complications related to malnutrition. The families had been told it was natural causes. Within a month, Sunrise Gardens lost its operating license. The parent company filed for bankruptcy 2 weeks after that. Gerald Whitman was arrested on 31 counts of criminal neglect and fraud. My mother lives with me now. She's gained back 12 pounds, and last Sunday, she remembered my name without prompting. Whitman got 9 years. His company's board members are facing their own charges. I visit the cemetery sometimes, where they buried the 3 residents who didn't make it. I make sure their graves always have fresh flowers